to make things work, to do better for myself and my family, yet I was so stuck. I felt like I could do nothing right. I was working a full-time job. I have a bachelor's degree. I got married. I feel like I was doing all the right things, and yet I was still so far away from living a life that I wanted to live, living a life that I knew I could live, that I was meant to live, but it was like it was slipping through my fingers. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Surface podcast. I'm your host, Michael Benton. And listen, before we get started, I want to make sure you guys are tapped in. So if you have not already, hit that button, hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening. It only helps me and supports the channel. Most importantly, it keeps you guys tapped in with the content. Let's get it. Have you guys ever felt like something was off in your life, like something was missing, even though everything looked fine on the outside? Most people, I would tell you, aren't living, they're surviving, right? Like they're following the scripts, they're doing all the right things that they need to be doing, and yet they're still feeling stuck. And I know this firsthand because I was one of those people. And if you've been feeling numb, unmotivated, or like you're wanting for something more to shift, to change there for you, then this episode is your wake-up call. There was a moment in my life in which I came across the idea of living on autopilot. I'm sure I probably watched it on some YouTube channel or listening to a motivational speaker or something, but that hit me a little bit different because there's a phase in my life, and a moment to be exact, in which I can recollect like it was yesterday, in which I was sitting on my stairs at my house at the time, and I just had gotten laid off. And I remember staring out the window. And in that moment, I was hoping and praying that the answer to all my problems would just, appear out of nowhere, right? And I remember sitting there being frustrated, not so much with laziness, but just with the fact that I was trying so hard to make things work, to do better for myself and my family, yet I was so stuck. I felt like I could do nothing right. I was working a full-time job. I have a bachelor's degree. I got married. I feel like I was doing all the right things, and yet I was still so far away from living a life that I wanted to live, living a life that I knew I could live, that I was meant to live, but it was like it was slipping through my fingers every single time. Something bad would always happen. I'd end up, moving from job to job, or, things were tight financially, or the relationships with my kids were superficial, and my ex-wife. It was just all these things, and I couldn't fully get a grasp on how I can make that better, how I can make that go away. And I wasn't failing because I didn't care, right? I was failing because I was asleep. To what actually was to actually what mattered, to actually what was going on in my life. And it wasn't the external things in my life that were causing the commotion and the disruption in my life. It was the internal things that were causing the commotion and the disruption. Recognizing you're stuck is the absolute beginning of you cultivating a different life for yourself. It's the foundation in which you create awareness that allows you to start making different choices, that allows you to pivot from how you've been living, how you've been thinking. And most people, I feel, don't realize that they're asleep until life hits them, right? I'm sure you've all have heard people say, like, people hit rock bottom, like you really don't feel it until you hit rock bottom. And I kind of think there's some truth to that. I don't think people fully understand or grasp how they're living on autopilot, how they're just going from day to day like a robot, until things get really bad for them, right? Until they find themselves on the verge of divorce, until they find themselves they've lost being able to see their children, or they can't keep a job, or their car gets repoed, their house gets, foreclosed on or whatever, right? Then it's almost like a jolt, right? It's almost like a jolt to the human body, right? To the mind. It like wakes up the mind, right? And there's a huge stimulus that happens when something tragic happens, right? And then you come to a realization, right? For the most part, you start to realize, oh shit, like this is worse than I thought. Like what have I been doing? It's almost like I've been comatose, right? And you're just drifting. That's exactly how I felt. There are signs, right? There's the signs of like burnout, right? There's a sign of disconnection between, reality, right? What's actually happening in your life. There's a disconnection between your social environment, your relationships with your immediate family, your friends, right? And there's this feeling of just going through the motions. You wake up, you eat, you go to work, you come home, you do whatever you do, you sleep, you do it all over again, right? And there's not this conscious living, right? And we'll talk about that here in a moment. There's this unconscious living, which you're just, like I said, a robot, and you're just kind of going through the motions. And at times, for the most part, you're following someone else's script. Someone has written or outlined, right, what your life should look like, what your life is going to look like. And through birth all the way up to adulthood and even beyond, we've all been conditioned to think a certain way, to act a certain way, to behave a certain way. Unbeknownst to us, we've all fallen in line because that's what we feel is the right thing to do. That's what we only know. It's our truth, right? That you go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a good job that pays, enough, get married, have kids, raise a family, right? Buy a home, and then just kind of live life and save for retirement through your job. They'll give you the 401k or the IRA, and then you perish, and then rinse and repeat. Don't get disturbed or down on yourself for the time frame in which this awareness is coming about. But it's more importantly just understanding that you do have the awareness now, right? I would also tell you guys, like, that script of school, job, bills, retirement equals not fulfillment. Like, that script wasn't written for someone who wants joy and abundance in their life. It was written for obedience, right? It was written for you to stay in line with the rest. If you look around in society, that's what we have. We have a bunch of people who have been conditioned to be obedient, to stay in line, and don't think beyond what they've been taught. Don't go against the grain, as they say. It's imperative that each of you guys, you begin to dust off that cloud that you've had over your head for so long, and to really open your eyes to what is happening to you, what is happening around you. That's where the autopilot switches to, conscious living, right? Being a conscious being, meaning you're taking control of your life. You're the one making the decisions. You're actively making decisions, right? You're not responding to what life is giving you, right? You're actually taking action before the response comes back to you, right? You're initiating, you're creating. That's the life that we all need to be living by, because autopilot is survival. It's not creation. Autopilot is survival. Our brains are designed. We have a primitive side of our brain, and then we have a side of our brain that is the creative side, and it's the joyful side, and the abundant side, and it's the side of wanting more, the desire, right? Our brains are primed for survival ever since the Stone Ages, right? It's primed to keep you in survival mode, to keep you safe. So you ever wonder why, when you try something new, you automatically get the response like, "Oh, we shouldn't be doing this. We haven't tried it before. What if we fail?" That's your brain trying to keep you safe because it knows what it knows. You have to be conscious enough to look beyond that, to move beyond those initial feelings and emotions that you get when you're trying something new, when you're doing something for the first time, and when you're pursuing something big goals, big dreams, things of that nature. So if you don't pause to reflect, you're going to keep reacting instead of creating. You're going to keep reacting to what life is giving you, what it's throwing at you, instead of being the one to say, no, this is what I want. I don't want this path. I want this path. These are the things I want to have. This is the person that I want to become. This is the life I want to create. How do I go about doing that? And instead of still focusing and being in the lane in which, okay, well, I need to get a good job. Doesn't matter what job it is for the most part, as long as I decently like it and it pays me well, it's enough to take care of my family, I'll do that job, right? When your creative side is like, no, I'm a writer. I want to write. Let me out. Let me write, right? Let me create. You need to listen to that side more. That's the side that you need to be paying attention to. How do I make this writing side of me be my full-time thing where it takes care of my family and does more than that? And it allows me to have joy and abundance. So that's how we need to be operating. And I would tell you that waking up isn't like a one-time event, right? It's not a one-time event. It's a decision that you make over and over and over again. It's a decision to live with intention, to question your patterns, to take back your life, because that's what you all deserve. That's what each and every one of you guys deserve, a life that brings you joy and you take pride in who you are as a person and how you interact with society and what you contribute and how you teach and how you lead and how you live your life. Like, that should be on your terms. And so, man, if this episode hits you guys deep, I encourage you guys, this is just chapter 1 of my new book, Conscious Living, Wake Up and Take Control of Your Life. I put a lot of my experiences and personal stories in here, really just to guide you guys, because I wanted to create something in which you guys had a foundation for yourself, right? You can pick up this book and there's no storytelling, there's no fluff. It's literally a guide, starting point, on how to wake up, how to live consciously, right? How to not live on autopilot. And the journey only gets more real from there. So I encourage each and every one of you guys to grab a copy of the book on Amazon, Conscious Living. It's on Kindle, it's on paperback. So go to Amazon and pick that up and really start to take control of your life. And also do me a favor, tag me when you purchase the book, or tag me on Instagram if you guys have. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your feedback. That's at Michael_A_Benton. And man, I love what I do, and I love being able to share my experiences, and hopefully that it helps just one of you, right? Just one of you guys to even just shift your mindset, to think differently, to do differently, to be differently. And so again, I thank you guys for showing up with me once again. I love to hear you guys' feedback, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.